At this point, my Groundhog Day is living Groundhog Day. Hi, my name is Sydney, welcome back to hell. And as per usual, before we launch in, today's video is sponsored by Incogni. And of course, me and my company, Lions Tea Exchange. As many of you know, I am running an up to 40% off sale on the site. If you are looking for something delicious to sip on, give my tea a go. I promise you won't regret it because it is very tasty and I've put a lot of work into it. And look how nice it is. Okay, yeah, all right. Links in the description. Back to the video. I just have to tell you guys this before we get into the meat and potatoes of this video, but this is actually my second time recording this because I went ahead and filmed this entire video early today on April Fool's Day, but it turns out that I April Fooled myself because I forgot to turn on my microphone. So here we are, second time's the charm. I hope you love this video and you watch the whole thing because I have suffered to make it. Now, I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm assuming you're on the same page as me, but I feel like every time I turn around, there's some new remake, reboot, adaptation, sequel, or prequel that is being vomited out at us. I am not joking. I just saw a thing about Narnia being remade and Meryl Streep will play or voice Aslan. It was, the wording of this was actually confusing. Like, why? Who is asking for this? Well, I, for one, am looking forward to our female Aslan and all of the transgender woodland creatures. Now that I'm thinking about it, we have original Narnia movies and they're really not that old. Like, they were made within the last 20 years or so. Never mind, answered my own question. They were made within the last 20 years? Well, I guess they're due for a reboot. Anyway, as basically all of you know by now, this trend has been going on for quite some time. And as far as Hollywood is concerned, absolutely nothing is sacred and nothing is safe. And I, for one, am tired of it.
I'm tired of this, Grandpa!
That's too damn bad!
I mean, looking at the list of best-ranking films from 2024, outside of Wicked, which you could argue is still an adaptation from the stage show, the top 10 movies are all remakes or sequels. Even for the worldwide rankings, the vast majority of films that did well follow this exact same thing. Seriously, guys, I need to know who is watching Sonic the Hedgehog. Why is this here? That's basically the theme of this video. Why is this here? Why am I here? If only to suffer. At this point, while most of us, I would argue, are hanging out for something new and interesting, we're instead handed the same handful of stories over and over and over again. In 2025 and 2026 alone, we will have the live-action remakes of How to Train Your Dragon, Snow White, Lilo and Stitch, and Moana, just to name a few. We also have the upcoming reboots and remakes of The Karate Kid, Superman, Fantastic Four, Shrek, Toy Story, Harry Potter, Jurassic Park, Naked Gun, Running Man, and Final Destination. And I'm only scratching the surface, to put it mildly. Funnily enough, when I started working on this video and collecting the remakes and whatever that have been done in the last sort of 10 to 20 years, I asked Grok the AI for help and input what I wanted, and it came back and was like, yeah, that's too many to list, friend. No. I can't help but find that funny that even the AI is like, stop! Anyway, with all of the recent drama surrounding the new Snow White remake, it really got me thinking about the current state of entertainment, why people are hating what's being churned out by Hollywood, and why Hollywood refuses to engage with the new ideas. And honestly, as a 90s baby, this is something that I've wanted to talk about for a long time, not just with relation to television and film, but also with relation to basically everything, where I feel like things that we grew up with are now being recycled for this current generation, but without the heart and the soul and the things that made those things at the time for us so fun and enjoyable. I feel like this a lot with relation to music as well. I don't know if you guys have noticed too, but music that was really popular when we were younger is being remixed for this generation, and it's just oddly worse. Like, they'll take I'm Blue and that song out of Romania. I don't want to get copyrighted, but you get the idea. In lieu of the music, please enjoy my copyright dance. I'm pretty sure I heard Cascada being remixed recently, and it made me throw up in my mouth. So yes, that is what we're going to talk about today, but exclusively with relation to Hollywood, film, and television, because I would love to know why nothing new is being created, and why most of us feel this sense of unease watching our collective childhood memories be destroyed. And of course, all of my regular disclaimers, this video is by no means exhaustive. I'm not going to hit every single point in this topic, and I will be focusing on things that I think are of interest. So before you once again board my hell gondola, and by the way, when I say gondola, guys, I mean this kind of a gondola, not this kind of a gondola. I don't even know where you got this. More importantly, how many of you have been on the gondola for this long thinking we were in a gondola? What did you think all of the river references meant? Okay, anyway, we're in the gondola now again, and before we get into the things that are crap about Hollywood and together we are sad collectively about it, let's hear from today's sponsor, Incogni. And you better watch this ad because it's weird and I was surrounded by paint fumes. Lots of things in life are scary. Like my house right now, looking straight out of Dexter. But it's also scary how much of your private information is accessible online and traded by data brokers every day. So while you could be concerned about this, you should be more concerned that your social security number, phone number, email address, names, physical addresses are all accessible on the internet. So if you're anything like me and this genuinely freaks you out more than the murdered situation I have going on right now, well, I have a solution for you. Incogni. Incogni reaches out to data brokers on your behalf and requests the removal of your personal information. It also handles any objections from these data websites. Incogni also ensures your data stays off the internet by conducting repeated removals, taking your data down if it pops up again. I genuinely feel a lot better using Incogni because I am incredibly creeped out by data brokers as it is, but I like that it's just so straightforward to use. You make an account, grant Incogni the right to work for you, and then sit back and let them get to work. I also think it's really cool that you can add up to 4 loved ones to your annual subscription, which means that you can protect their information as well. And if you're at all concerned, Incogni offers a risk-free 30 days. So if you don't love it, you can get a full refund on your service. So if you too want to take back your information from data brokers, then click the link in the description or go to incogni.com/Sydney. And don't forget to use code Sydney for 60% off an annual plan. Back in 2021, actor and producer Matt Damon appeared on the show First We Feast. During the episode, the host, Sean Evans, asked Damon what was driving the sentiment among viewers that movies aren't made for them anymore. Damon explained that the shift in Hollywood was largely due to the death of the DVD. When movies were made in the past, they weren't entirely reliant on box office performance because people would later buy the DVD, leading to another influx of sales. However, when this was made obsolete as technology developed, that changed the movies that studios were prepared to make. He went on to add just how much money would have to be made on a small budget film in order to get everyone paid and to make a small profit, saying that needing to earn these massive sums of money makes it harder to take risks in film creation. I am not joking when I tell you that I just read an article about a Warner Brothers executive saying that they would rather focus on big existing IPs than making something new. Oh my god, does this mean creepy CGI Looney Tunes? Please no. No more of this. Damon was not alone in expressing these ideas. In fact, they had been echoed before and after by several notable Hollywood figures. Back in 2018, actor Anthony Mackie said that Hollywood only caters to 16-year-olds and China, suggesting many film classics of the past would just never be made today, such as The Goonies, Halloween, and The Thing. He added, "It's just a different time now. Hollywood makes movies for specific audiences as opposed to just making good movies. And that's why people stopped going to the movies, because most movies suck." Even as recently as a few months ago, Quentin Tarantino blasted the state of filmmaking in general, asking, "What the hell is a movie now?" He also criticized how fast films go from the cinema to streaming services, making the bold statement that 2019 was the last year of movies. This was in reference to the huge box office numbers in 2018 and 2019, but in 2020, as the result of the big sneeze, cinema sales dropped off significantly. significantly. To put in perspective just how poorly Hollywood is doing, Disney CEO Bob Iger, one of the biggest culprits with relation to squeezing money out of existing IP, admitted the industry has lost sight of its primary objective: entertainment. During an interview in 2023, Iger said that Disney needed to focus on the story rather than messages fueled by agendas.
To honor the day I was born, my father named me Snow White.
Okay, when Bob Iger is showing up to say that there's too much agenda, you know that his pocket is starting to hurt. Don't have enough billions over there, Iggy boy? Honestly, the punishment for these Disney execs should be to strap them to a chair and make them watch every remake they've ever produced, one after the other. But here's the thing. Despite Iger's words and this seemingly industry-wide acknowledgement of the problem, Hollywood's answer hasn't been to make better stories. It's been to remake and reboot the most successful classics from the last 30 years without any of the soul and heart that made them matter in the first place. And if the last decade or so has showed us anything, it's not only that Hollywood has lost sight of entertainment, it's lost its nerve. I'd argue that for most of us 80s and 90s kids, we grew up in what feels a bit like the golden age of entertainment. Because in the not too distant past, Hollywood wasn't afraid to try. We had access to incredible variety. Yes, there were of course big budget films that brought us movie stars and explosions, but we also had low budget gems that built cult followings and made massive marks culturally. Films like Top Gun, for example, with Tom Cruise screaming across the sky with his goose, was quintessential 80s, and it captured people's attention at the time, leading to its massive success at the box office. Or The Matrix, which was considered an expensive movie to make, but is still culturally relevant over 20 years later for its beautiful cinematography, great characters, and prophetic writing. Or even The Blair Witch Project, which, while it wasn't the first, was one of the most successfully marketed found footage films, and it scared the crap out of people who walked into the cinema believing they were witnessing real events. This actually came out when I was a lot younger, obviously, and I remember my friends, we wanted to get this at the film shop, but I was too scared to watch it. I still have never seen The Blair Witch Project because I feel like it'll freak me out. Anyway, this was a movie that cost $60,000 to make, and yet it left an enormous mark on the industry, helping to popularize an entire film genre. And the kicker? This movie was made with a couple $1,000 and a camcorder, and it ended up making $240 million. Television during this time also gave us some notable, impactful entertainment, like The X-Files or Buffy the Vampire Slayer. You know that audio on TikTok about being spooky that all of the weird smut-reading girls are into? Yeah, that's from The X-Files, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm glad for you. Because book talk is a weird place. And I'm almost convinced most of these people belong in prison.
They feel your methods, your theories are
spooky? Do you think I'm spooky?
Go call your dad. Personally, I'm unironically rewatching Malcolm in the Middle at the moment because sitcoms from the 90s and 2000s are peak entertainment in my book, and I miss them, and I want them back. Just kidding, they're apparently remaking this too. Why can't I just have one thing that's mine? And of course, I have to mention this, not every piece of entertainment hit. There were plenty of flops during this time period. Plenty of movies that just did not resonate. But the point is, studios gave creators room to breathe. They had freedom to experiment, to throw ideas at the wall, and some of these ideas stuck so much so that they've hung around all these years later. Fast forward to now, and that's all but gone. Where we once had variety, we now have sameness. Where there was once risk, there's caution. Where there was once intention, real care in storytelling, in cinematography, in making something that lasted, there's unfocused, directionless propaganda. Before the crutch and over-reliance by studios today on CGI, the only way to get a movie greenlit was to have a great bloody script and a vision. In the past, artistic expression was baked into the filmmaking pie, and it showed up in almost all ways. Storytelling, the characters that were chosen and explored, the plot lines, even the look of the film itself. On this front, I've actually seen some really great videos made by people explaining why films today look so bad and why it's so jarring. Simply put, most of them look like they're shot in a sterile lab, and that's almost because they are. Everything is green screened into oblivion so producers can add things later as they please. And it gives movies the appearance of being too crisp and too clean, like you're watching sports instead of a movie about murders or something. Although, I don't know, maybe some of you like your murderers crispy and bright.
This is the worst.
New films miss the grit and texture that made old classics dynamic. Shadows were saturated and lighting had actual depth. A particularly good video by Patrick Tomaso highlighted several examples of this, like the 2007 film Superbad, which he commends for its picture quality, but also the intentionality behind everything in the scenes, like the 70s vibe created by the wood in the rooms and the carpet on the floors, the wardrobe selected, and so on. Because cinematography used to be done with intention. There was creative expression and thought behind the shots, messages and purpose in the scenes, whether you were paying attention to those things or not. Everything we saw was there because it was selected to be there. He highlights the 1998 Parent Trap for this too, giving us this one beautiful specific shot where light is cast across Elizabeth's eyes. He explains this is hard to do now, given that films are shot bland and boring with flat lighting and an abundance of green screen. And this sort of goes to Matt Damon's point about the death of the DVD. He explained that years ago there was so much more room in cinema for genuine artistic expression. There was more room for different kinds of storytelling because it wasn't contingent on insane film budgets or even more insane profits. Fantastic movies could be made for a fraction of what they cost today, and they'd resonate so much more with audiences because they'd be real. Now, there is so much risk involved in that, and there is so much fear that movies will not perform, and as such, those risks are simply not taken. And for us 80s and 90s babies, we notice it more than anyone because we know what we're missing. It's also worth noting as an aside that Hollywood now has to contend more than ever, it seems, with actors and actresses getting on the red carpet and saying psychotic things to the press. Like our friend Rachel.
Weird.
Just hush your face. Just shh. Anyway, so with no nerve to speak of, with the ever-changing theatrical landscape because of streaming services, what does Hollywood decide to do, you might ask? It turns to what's already worked. Our childhoods, the classics, and hits copy-paste. And frankly, this might be where my biggest issue comes from. It's bad enough that we are drowning in remakes and reboots, and not only of films that are actually old, but those that haven't even been around for a decade. But it sticks in my guts that they're remaking this entertainment without any of the components that made these pieces so successful in the first place. In the last 20 years, Disney has made a total of 22 remakes, sequels, prequels, and reboots, including Alice in Wonderland, Cinderella, The Jungle Book, Pete's Dragon, Beauty and the Beast, Dumbo, Aladdin, The Lion King, Mulan, and Snow White, and so on and so forth. And coming this year and the next is Lilo and Stitch and Moana, just to add to the count. There's no trailer for this yet, so instead I hope you enjoyed this clip of a rock that I found. And as most of you already probably know by now, one of the biggest criticisms being thrown Disney's way has a lot to do with their scary use of CGI, but also the lack of meaningful storytelling, not to mention eliminating all of the charm of the original hand-drawn animations. But Disney is just one company. Now imagine what the Hollywood landscape looks like when everyone is participating in this remake explosion. Just kidding, you don't have to imagine because it's happening. To put some of this in perspective, since 2007, there have been 3 Spider-Man iterations. 3. all with their own criticisms and critiques. And it's actually to the point where you need to explain the year in order to determine the film. Fantastic Four, which was a catastrophic failure in cinemas in 2015, is already back in 2025. That's a 10-year age gap for anyone counting. Texas Chainsaw Massacre has had 5 movies since 2003, and at this point this is remake inception because the 2022 movie is a remake of a remake. We even have a live-action How to Train Your Dragon coming later in 2025, although the original animation is just over 15 years old. But then there are other films and shows that absolutely nobody asked for, like a live-action Scooby-Doo, or the upcoming I Know What You Did Last Summer, or the Final Destination reboot. Not to mention Shrek 5, Toy Story 5, Moana 2, the new Harry Potter series, Jurassic World 4, Saw 27, and Fast and the Furious 30. And who the hell asked for another Freaky Friday? Like, seriously, who is this for? Listen to me. I know not a soul wanted Jamie Lee Curtis to become relevant again, or whatever it is she's trying to do here. I think I can speak for all of us when I say I wish that she'd just disappear into the pit of Hollywood weirdos. We have remakes of movies that didn't even need to be remade, like Mean Girls or the proposed White Chicks, which we know is going to be absolutely horrific because they can't make fun movies like they used to anymore because political correctness just trumps everything. Maybe it would have been fine if the studios were trying to recapture the magic of the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. Maybe most of us could overlook the attempt to cash in on our nostalgia or the attempt to bring these stories to today's generation. Maybe all of this could be forgiven if these films were executed properly, but they aren't. Writers today seem to have lost the special sauce that it took to make entertainment that could actually endure. With the rise of the hyper-politicized, hypersensitive political correctness, the entertainment industry took one enormous step into progressivism. And the result is that they're making entertainment from our childhoods without the things that made that entertainment actually good. Because now you can't make politically incorrect jokes. You can't be fun for the sake of it, can't exclude any group of people. Everyone must be represented. There's no room for offensive language. There's no room for soul. What's really interesting is how most of these studios are trying to sell nostalgia, but they are completely unable to properly execute this kind of a product. And like I said, they are just reproducing shows and films that were once popular without the things that made them so good in the first place, and are instead injecting and replacing those good things with a very specific ideological agenda. Progressivism. The agenda's progressivism. So this brings me to my last point, which is really 2 points that I have mashed together. When I first started working on this video, it occurred to me that those of us born in the 80s and 90s, and actually anybody over the age of 28 really, has potentially aged out of what's popular. And maybe this entertainment isn't meant for us anymore, although it's being marketed to us. And honestly, I do think that this is true to an extent. Hollywood is chasing a younger crowd with shorter attention spans and streaming habits that are totally different to what we grew up with. As a result, we're living in the age of fast food cinema. Entertainment that's slapped together to appeal to the ever-shortening attention spans of the TikTok generation. Explosions, quick cuts, big stars, no real substance. The people working on these films don't seem to have the same attention to detail. They don't seem to take the time to properly flesh out characters or get the plot exactly right. Because how could you possibly tell a nuanced story to your viewers when they can't even be bothered to watch long enough to absorb it? To Matt Damon's point, maybe this is why we see a lot more big budget films these days, predicated on things from the past, because at least those things are tried and true. And maybe it's better and easier to take this road as far as Hollywood people are concerned, rather than take the risk on doing something new. It's easier to keep pooping out Star Wars films and Marvel anything than produce something that is new and interesting. So time and time again, studios roll us back around to what's proven, our nostalgia, rather than risk a flop. To be fair here too, and I think this is worth saying, not everything today is terrible. I have watched movies recently that I thought, wow, that's not bad, like bullet train, but maybe that's because I am rubbing together my last 2 brain cells and that's what they wanted. We actually have had some pretty amazing mini-series and short documentaries filling the gap and the hole left by good cinema, like Midnight Mass, Squid Game, Dracula, Shogun, if that counts. I really hope it counts. And in saying this too, not everything from the past was a major hit either. This is what Sturgeon's Law is all about, actually, the concept that 90% of everything is crap. And you know what? I actually think this is true to an extent. For every Jurassic Park, there was an Inspector Gadget, and for every Good Will Hunting, there was a Bad Will Hunting. It's a terrible joke, but I am hilarious, so leave me alone.
My boy's wicked smart.
I think the problem is that if Sturgeon's Law is correct, the 10% of good cinema that prevailed has now become today's 90% of crap. And that honestly this just makes me really sad. It's like Hollywood is mining for gold, melting it down, and handing us cheap tin in its place, which is awful, just awful. I want the shiny. I don't want the tin. Of course, there is so much more to say about this topic that we won't be getting into in this video, so I'm sorry about that. But I do want to make note of the fact that I am aware that there are some videos that exist that are remakes that are better than the originals, like Scarface.
I buried those cockroaches!
But today's remakes and reboots and reimaginings just cannot hold a candle to what has come before. And ultimately, for me personally, I would much rather go to the cinema and see something new and interesting, to be given the chance to see something that I potentially have never seen before and heard of before, than to be given the same handful of ideas and stories on repeat. A well-timed and well-executed remake or reboot here and there is perfectly fine. But when this kind of entertainment is what almost wholly makes up the entire Hollywood entertainment landscape, we have a big problem. In the end, with so much change to the entertainment industry over the last number of decades, I'm not sure that we ever will go back to the way that stories used to be told. But for the foreseeable future, we are definitely stuck on this road. So I don't know about the rest of you, but I really can't wait to see Final Destination 74. Now on that note, and before I open the floor to all of you, this is just a reminder, check out Incogni using the link in the description. As you guys know, or maybe don't know, when I talk about products on this channel, it's things that I actually use. So I feel very strongly about Incogni, and I feel very strongly about the data broker thing. So if you too are also concerned about this, definitely check them out. Use my code to get 60% off an annual plan. Now I open the floor to all of you. What do you all think? Are you on my side of this issue where you think, yeah, I am tired of the reboots and the remakes. I want to see something new. I need to see something new. Are you on the other side of this issue where you think this is not that big of a deal? I like seeing these stories retold. I like seeing them expanded on. Do you think that Matt Damon is right and the DVD, the death of the DVD, signaled kind of the death of Hollywood? Do you think that it's a good thing? Do you think it's a bad thing? Do you think that there's no creativity left in entertainment and they have to recycle everything? Do you think the political agendas that we see are contributing to all of this? And what do you generally make of this issue overall? As always, if you have made it this far in the video, congratulations. I always like having you along for the full ride. If you are new here and you are not subscribed already and you would like to see more of me and more of this kind of content, feel free to subscribe to the channel, as well as leaving this video a like and a comment, because I do read the majority of them and I like hearing your feedback. Of course, as well, I hope you all stay safe and well and make good choices, and I will see you wonderful, pretty people in the next video.